guys, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about a book that just got recently released and hits all the nostalgia feel. And that is Wings of Starlight by Allison Saft. So I have a lot of things to talk about with this book, so let's just kind of jump right into it. But if you like seeing book reviews from me, let me know in the comments down below. If you want to see more things from me, subscribe, like, do all the things. And if you have any suggestions for future videos, also let me know in the comments. But let's just hop into it. Now that I don't have a contact tap dancing on my eye, my glasses are clean, let's get in the video. Starting off with the synopsis of the book, obviously this follows Queen Clarion, or in this case, Princess Clarion, right before her coronation to be Queen of Pixie Hollow. She's kind of been struggling, you know, doing what her mentor and her predecessor, Alvina, has been doing, and what she feels is what she needs to do as a queen for Pixie Hollow, as well as mastering her own powers, as it's something she's been struggling with since her conception. On the heels of her coronation, these things called nightmares escape out of the winter woods to wreak havoc on all of Pixie Hollow. I'm not going to get too much into detail as to what the nightmares can do. I'll just let you guys figure that out if you decide to read the book. Kind of pushing the envelope and trying to really just help Pixie Hollow in her own way. She does the unthinkable and sets off and goes into the winter woods to find help, to find some kind of assistance or some knowledge of what's happening, and runs into the ever mysterious Lord Mallory, who is the warden of the winter woods. There they obviously start to hit it off, and things happen, and basically this story is just not only Clarion's like origin story into who she is by the time you see her in Pixie Hollow when Tinkerbell is first arrived, but also an origin story for her and Mallory after that one little suggestive scene that they had a little something going on in The Secret of the Wings. Obviously there are going to be trigger warnings for this book. It's not a lot. It's a Disney book. We can't really do a lot. There's a lot of violence in here. They're physically fighting things. And there is, obviously, if you ever have seen The Secret of the Wings, there does come to a point where a character does get a very debilitating injury, which makes them disabled. Moving on to my first thoughts. Obviously, I have loved Pixie Hollow since before the games were a thing. I loved it when the dolls had just come out and we had like Ronnie and Tinkerbell and Queen Clarion. Her first initial doll. I'm gonna throw it up here because I just love this doll. I was very saddened by her redesign in the movies that I really disliked Clarion for a long time because I really just loved the pink. But I understood why. I also, like I said, I've been following Tinkerbell since I was like a little child. Loved the books. Loved the books before this. Throw it up here. And I loved Pixie Hollow as a concept. So I had a lot of fun watching Secret of the Wings. I love that movie. I loved all of the movies, really. I think I've only missed one movie so far. I was super excited when this was announced, and I knew I had to get my hands on it right away. Starting off with the cornerstone of this book, and the ones who are on the main cover of this book. I really loved the relationship between Clarion and Mallory. I think this book did a really good job of fleshing them out and giving us like a basis for the yearning that we see in Secret of the Wings. I think that their relationship is very fun and refreshing to see. Obviously, with the rise of more healthy relationships in media, it's not anything new, but it's still fun to see healthy like Disney couple. It was just really fun to see them like fall in love and become who they were by the end of the book to lead us into Secret of the Wings, which I'm assuming is a few years down the line. I just love seeing how much they inspired each other. I think Clarion got a lot of inspiration on how to be a leader and how to be kind of like interacting with her people from Mallory that we see, whereas how she was taught was to keep a pretty healthy distance from her people and just rule from above kind of scenario, whereas Mallory is very much like into his people and is like on the grounds kind of guy. I love seeing Mallory support her from the beginning. From the jump, from the minute he met this girl, he knew she was destined for great things. He knew she was capable of doing these great things. And I just really adored seeing that dynamic. It wasn't like he had to grow to understand or trust her. He just trusted her with his whole chest from the get-go. he knew that this was the woman that he could go to. He knew that this was the woman that would lead the Pixie Hollow into a new era, and I think that was just beautiful to see. Typically, you have to you see the characters like warm up to each other and kind of gain that trust and that like support. But Mallory was just 100% there for Clarion. And I think it was just beautiful to see how much the two of them kind of bounced off each other and how much they supported each other in their like process. Even though you knew where this was going. Like, we've all seen Secret of the Wings if you're reading this book. You knew where it was gonna go. You knew that at the end, this is not a spoiler, because Secret of the Wings has been out for probably like 10 years now. You knew that at the end of this book, they were gonna have to separate. Because for whatever reason, they were going to separate. There's just going to be a long bit of yearning. I still hoped and prayed that maybe we were going to get a rewrite in the script. You know? But no. So I felt got, even though I knew it was going to happen. It felt like I was reading they both die at the end again. It's in the title of the novel that they both die at the end. And yet still, like a fool, I hoped they wouldn't. So in this case, like a fool, I hope they would not break up. And I hope they would stay together. At the end of the book, I just wanted them to be happy. I wanted them to be like Tessa and Jem, where they met at the border of spring and winter every like year and just talked. But clearly, we can't all have happy endings here. Even though I knew where I was going, the relationship had just really solidified for me that I wanted them to be together and to defy the script that had been written. But sadly, that was not the case. The characters were another cornerstone of this novel for me. Obviously, we got the two here. The main two. But I felt like even the side characters themselves were very well developed. They stood out on their own. I don't think I confused Artemis or Petra for one another, or I confused any of like the other, what do you call it, ministers of the seasons. There was a little touch and go sometimes with Autumn, with Rowan, what's his name? With the Minister of Autumn and Iris, just because, I don't know, they were introduced at the same time, and I was like, oh yeah, Iris is the Minister of Autumn, and then Iris was talking when the Minister of Autumn was not there, and I was like, awkward, let's redo. But I feel like all the characters were separate of themselves, aside from that one little incident. I think that Clarion very much was developed as a character who was very insecure, and we get to see her really like grow into herself and get comfortable in her own skin. I also really enjoyed reading the very subtle but not subtle, like subtle because they're very much side characters and we don't see a lot of the time in their heads. So it was subtle in that sense, but it wasn't subtle in that you knew that these two were queer. There are queer fairies in Pixie Hollow. I think when I read the first interaction with these two characters and the very overt, like, oh yeah, there's a yearning sigh, I was like, ooh, they gay. So I was very happy about that. Overall, I just really loved getting to know the characters. I love seeing the different talents working together. I like the descriptions. I think that the characters were definitely a cornerstone of this piece. Moving on to the writing, Alison Saft is well known for her very descriptive and very lyrical writing. And I was kind of concerned on how this would transfer into a Disney novel. But it transferred beautifully. I think I had a fun time being in Pixie Hollow. Even though it was told in third person, I felt like I was directly in Clarion's shoes, flying the Pixie Hollow area, going through the different seasons, trying on the dresses she was gonna wear, and just like the different like locations we were in. I think Alison Saft did a wonderful job of being lyrical and descriptive, but not being too overbearing with it. It didn't feel like there were just descriptions thrown at us for description's sake. Everything was there to create a scene, to create a purpose, and I've just found it really fun to enjoy. Like, I didn't enjoy A Dark and Drowning Tide by Alison Saft, but I love the writing. So I really love that the writing here transferred just as well as it did in that one. I also just think Alison Saft has a very immersive writing style. I could really just get lost in the words that she was creating and the world that she was building. It also helped that this world was very familiar to me. So it was just fun being in this book with her writing style and just like getting lost in the words. I think she is a master at her craft and she should keep writing until the end of her days. The thing that I didn't like very much about this book, and this is me nitpicking, this is me being very nitpicky, would have to be the lore and the world building. And I'm sure you're sitting there going, but Therese, it's Pixie Hollow. We know the lore and the world building. What do you mean? I mean that because we knew the lore and the world building so well, I feel like obviously Disney gives these authors like, here's what you're going to write about. Have at. I feel like this book definitely, with no fault to the author, because again, Disney hands her a project and goes, this is what you are writing about, and this is the world that you are writing in. So there's only so much you can expand on, but I feel like it definitely, the world building and lore definitely relied on the nostalgia. I feel like if you had never seen Tinkerbell, outside of Peter Pan 1 and 2, I think you might be a little confused with all the different like jargon that's in here. So it definitely banked on a bit of nostalgia for you to understand the world building and the lore. I also felt there were a couple things that were tossed in there that I wanted to see more of. There were hints at the relationship between the previous queen and the previous Winter of Woods, or the predecessors of the queens and the predecessor of the Winter of the Woods relationship there, and it never really got touched on after a quick little brief, like whoosh. And then I also felt like there were also hints at other fairy talents and Sparrowman talents that went extinct for whatever reason, and I gave an explanation why, but I'm someone who just wants more of something. The too much gene, sorry. I thought that was going to take it somewhere, but it ultimately didn't. So that was just my little thing where I was like, could have given me more and have left a little bit more to be desired from, but I still had fun with this book nonetheless, despite this being a very nitpicky thing. And overall, this like very nitpicky thing just made me wanting more out of the reading experience. Like I said, this isn't a fault. I'm gonna fault Allison's after this, because Disney literally just gives you like, here, you are now writing this thing. Here's what we want you to write about, and go forth. So I wasn't gonna fault her for the very like sparse world building on certain ends and the little like hints at other things, but it definitely made me feel like I wanted more out of the reading experience. Moving on to my overall thoughts and my rating, I give this a 5 out of 5 stars. Despite my very nitpicky and specific concerns, I still had a lot of fun with this book. It was super fun to be back in Pixie Hollow as an adult, nearly probably 10 years or so after the movies had first aired, which is a wild thing to say, and probably even longer since the first original books had come out. But I had a ton of fun reading this book. The nostalgia was just the right amount for me to want to keep reading without feeling like I was revisiting something over and over again. I had a lot of fun seeing Queen Clarion before she was this majestic, beautiful thing, and seeing Mallory before he was Mallory, or more so Mallory. I highly recommend it if you're a huge fan of Tinkerbell, Pixie Hollow, if you wanted more out of that relationship that we see in Secret of the Wings. If you like yearning and forbidden romance and a little hint of danger, I think you're going to have a lot of fun with this book. But that is it for my thoughts on Wings of Starlight by Allison Saft. Like I said, if you like these kind of videos, let me know in the comments down below. If you want to see more from me, subscribe, like, and comment. But until next time, I'll see you guys in my next video, and stay safe. Bye.